magic. Ooh, you the baddest. Sun kissed, heaven sent, words don't do justice. I could go on and on and on, talking about that black girl magic, black girl magic. Ooh, you the baddest. Sun kissed, heaven sent, words don't do justice.
What's up, y'all? It's your girl, Reinvented, with another dope episode of the Reason Why podcast. Let's talk about it.
You know, it's such a horrible stigma against our Black men when it comes to being fathers. And, you know, there's so many great ones out there that, you know, do they part and show up. And sometimes they're not the biological father. You have the uncles and you have the cousins and, you know, you have the granddads, you know, and they show up and they do their part. And you know, I notice it's such a versatility when it's Father's Day. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, Dad's Day. And then it's like you have this bunch of females over here that just wants to get recognized. And it's like, girl, shut your ass up and sit down. You got your card on Mother's Day. Okay. If you didn't, that's not my fault. But
let's talk about that right there.
Like it's annoying to me. I don't want no other woman wishing me happy Father's Day because I'm not a father. First, thank you. I will never know what it's like to be a father. The only thing that I know is being able to pick up the slack for the absentee parent. But I'm not going to say I deserve to be told Happy Father's Day. I don't need to be told Happy Father's Day. I honestly don't need to be told I'm Happy Mother's Day because I don't need validation to be who I was supposed to be.
Let's start there. Yes.
I don't need a pile on my back. It's nice to get some recognition, but at the end of the day, I was gonna do this whether you recognize me or not. You feel me? These is mine. They came from me. So wasn't nobody ever gonna have to tell me what to do in regards to being a mother. You know what I'm saying? But I feel like we, as other Black women, need to speak up and tell those other Black men, pipe down, sis. This is not your day. Pipe the fuck down.
I agree with you 100% on that because I had a few people send me a happy Father's Day and my response was, I'm not a dad, I'm a mom. That's what I am. I'm a mom. I'm not a dad, Like, I don't want to take on a masculine role. That's part of our problem anyway. We so busy. You know what I mean? Like, everybody want to put us in the masculine role. No, it is time for me to be a straight female. I am a mom. I ain't nobody's daddy. Ain't no damn sperm come out of this to make no baby.
I'm tired of being mom revealed. Wrist is broke. Okay.
Listen,
I want to be in my. Let me talk to my husband about that. Get that for me.
I'm not about to. What? I'm not about to be a dad. No, I don't want to be. I don't want no nutsack. I'm good. Like,
I'm ready to be in my damsel in distress era.
In the beginning, I felt like I'm just gonna keep it real with you. I agree with it. I understand where y'all going with it, but I felt like before I was married, I was doing both. So yes, I did accept that Father's Day because I was playing both roles, and it wasn't about being masculine. It was about doing both parent jobs. That was basically it for me. But everything else, I kind of feel bad because every time Father's Day come around, for some strange reason, I forget until I see somebody post it. And then every time I try to get my husband to give, it's like he won't accept. It's like, well, you ain't got to give me a gift, but you got to go over the road with me for these many days. So here I am, ladies. Here I am, baby.
All right.
There's
someone this girl she need her own show.
Yes, she does all the time. There's someone that's close to me that's very, very upset because I received a total of 32 Happy Father's Days. I got 32 messages just in my cell phone. I didn't count Messenger, but just in my cell phone alone, I was wished Happy Father's Day 32 times. And the reason why I remember that number is because in conversation, I said 32 times over, someone has misrepresented who I am as a person.
Ooh, so I felt that.
I am my children's, I am their everything. I don't even know if mom is the word for the bond that I have. This topic was so touching for me is what we got to do is what I feel like what I did. Although, for me, I am a 40-year-old daddy's girl. My dad makes me sick to my stomach sometimes, but I'm a daddy's girl. So I'm going to find the solution to the problem because he's my, I still say daddy. I don't say pops. I don't dad. Like, that's my daddy. You know what I'm saying? And I just see all the weaknesses, and I see how so many people are so eager to tear down a man. Yes. And there's so many toxic environments that these men are being raised in, or not being raised at all. So they lack how to love. They lack how to deal with fear, how to deal with rejection, how
to
different types of personalities and things of that nature. So as I evolved from a child to a lady, to a young lady, to a woman, my perspectives are all different. So that's why as a child and as a young lady and as a young woman, you couldn't tell me nothing wrong about him. Whatever. But so as I had expectations in a man, he's going to protect, he's going to provide, he's going to be this, this, and this, because these are the things that I was used to. So when I got to, just guys speaking vulgar to you or trying to dangle smoke or drinks or, gold or their fancy car or whatever, I'm a daddy's girl. Like, my dad.
What about you, Auntie Donna? Was your dad a part of your life? And so, if so or not, how did that affect you?
Well, from birth until I was in pre-K, my dad was a part of my life. My dad and my mom was married, but it was a very toxic relationship to the point where my dad tried to kill my mom and wound up going to jail. So he was not a part of my life from kindergarten until he got out. And I think I was in 6th grade when he got out of jail. He didn't spend that much time for what he did. But when he got out, I didn't want any parts of him. I never really liked my dad because of what he did to my mom. But one thing my mom was, as a phenomenal woman that she was, and she never talked bad about him. She never talked bad, even though this man tried to literally take her life. My mother never talked bad about him in front of me. If she did talk bad, I wasn't around, so I never heard anything negative. And anytime he wanted to see me, she would ask me, if I wanted to, but I chose not to have a relationship with my dad because I couldn't forgive him for what he tried to do to my mom. Like, you tried to take my mom out of here. So I never forgave him. And because of that, I always had a fear of relationships that had domestic violence. And then I wound up in domestic violence type of relationships. So it repeated the cycle anyway. And so I always get scared in relationships every single time because I have a fear, like, if my own dad tried to take out my mom, why wouldn't this dude try to do the same? So I had to do a lot of healing in regards to that and take a step back because it did affect my relationships a lot, because then I became like how Ike was in the limo, how Tina was with Ike in the limo. Like, nigga, I ain't going for it no more. Like, if you put your hands on me, now I'm going to be the one that's going to be more aggressive. And so I had to turn down my anger because I was angry for years and years and years behind that. Like, it made me an angry woman when it came to that because, my dad was a motherfucker. You know what I mean? Like, who does that? So, yeah, it affected a lot of my relationships. Like, I had to sit and take inventory one day of how bad my relationships was because it literally was, after a while, if something was too good, I was ready to fight. And it was that whole domestic violence type thing, so I had to really heal myself from that. So for a relationship with my dad, he was not there at all. I had my brother. My brother is 8 years older than I am, but my brother is my brother. So, I'm little sis. So it's like he was protective of me, but he still couldn't give me what my father should have been able to give me. And I do have uncles in my life, but I had an uncle that lived in Ohio that would come and visit us, but that's my uncle. He would come and I would see how he would play with his kids, but it's still like, I always longed for that. Like, I longed for that daddy-daughter relationship. And then I feel bad because, like, my daughter, she doesn't have a dad, and I chose to be a single mom. A lot of people don't understand that, but I chose to be a single mom because I adopted my daughter. So I chose it. Yeah, I chose of being a single mom. And anytime it comes to a guy, I get scared because I don't want anybody connecting to her and then not being in her life.
Right. Yeah.
And I feel like that's what my dad did. Like, my dad left my life and even tried to take my mom. So you try to do a double decker on me, because if he succeeded in killing my mom, then I would have lost 2 parents in one bout, Yeah. So, yeah. It does. It makes it difficult, especially when I get into relationships because of that.
Okay. So like what you would like the thinking that they would hurt you, or is like the domestic thing, or
Yeah, it's the domestic thing, and I don't want to bond with anybody behind trauma. And I was doing a lot of trauma
right,
bonding with my
yeah,
previous relationships,
okay,
and then allowing it to happen.
yeah, no, that make perfect sense.
Absolutely. I
Um,
totally can relate.
what's up, guy?
Like for me and my situation with my dad, first and foremost, my dad was a hustler. You know what I'm saying? My dad sold dope. So like, my dad was there, but then he wasn't there, I guess. It was kind of like I was like Lala, I was a daddy's girl. Like my dad was literally and still is everything to me. Like I think it's just a connection that I've always had to him. We were born on the same day. So like I've always thought my dad was everything, but he was there and then again he wasn't. So like I said, the lifestyle he lived didn't permit him to be a everyday father. And I'm not sure when the relationship between my mother and my father stopped. I just knew my mother really loved my dad. I knew that much. And I just knew it was kind of like an off and on thing with them. But when I knew when she was upset because she expressed it, you know, to me about how she felt about him. But I feel like it really affected me a lot by him not really being there in the sense of what I needed from him. Like I said, I realized early on at a very young age that I was different. So I felt a lot of different things as a kid, very young. Like I didn't never really feel loved. I didn't feel beautiful. I didn't feel accepted. I didn't want it, but I masked those emotions so well that nobody knew what I was dealing with. Nobody knew what I was going through. And my dad, I can remember vivid little times with us together. Like, when I would go and see him, it would be like the best time ever, he would cook me French toast. Like he just did everything. My dad never really said no to me. So I always, looked up to him and saw this man like he was like my superhero in my life. You know what I'm saying? But the times that he wasn't around, it affected me a lot because I was the youngest out of 5 children. So all my brothers were older, you know what I'm saying? And they were already out of the house. So it was kind of like me and my mom a lot. And I did have a stepfather, just like Jess, my stepfather, and he was amazing, like my stepfather was amazing, but he wasn't my dad, you know what I'm saying? And I didn't really realize how much I needed my dad and how much he wasn't until I got older. Because see, when you're a little girl, you don't really see that. You know what I'm saying? You just see my dad, he's here, he buying me things and, but as I, got towards the teenagers, it was like, our relationship kind of like dwindled a little bit. Like I didn't see him as much, but throughout the process, him not being around, I went through a lot of things as a young girl. Like I said, I didn't identify with pretty. I didn't identify with wanted. I didn't feel like I was a big deal. I didn't feel that way. And a lot of those emotions I dealt with secretly. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And I remember, I remember the lessons that my dad gave me a lot of times was more when he was in his hustling stage. Like, because I had an uncle, all my uncles and stuff would be around. They was all cool dudes. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, they will always say little things like, keep your hair done, keep your nails done, don't go outside looking this way, don't go outside looking that way, never depend on no man, don't let nobody buy you and make you think that, you know what I'm saying? So I got lessons like that, you know what I'm saying? Like that. But you're beautiful and, you're important to me. I don't remember hearing those things from my dad, I don't ever remember hearing my dad ever telling me I was beautiful. And it's not to say anything bad against him, but it's just what it is. I never heard him say that. And it affected me a lot. I think it affected me in the long run, how I picked and choose men in my life, what I accepted in my life. And I feel like watching him and my mother go through the time that they went through where it was very toxic. I feel like the energy that what they presented me, I emulated. in certain different relationships. Like my mom was an aggressor, so I always been an aggressor. You know, my dad was a type where, you know, he wasn't going to entertain nobody's shit. He wasn't going to entertain that cold. I got that. You feel me? Like I can easily just be like, okay, I'm gonna fall back. You feel me? So a lot of that shit I got didn't even realize. And I feel like I was always looking for somebody to protect me. I was always looking for somebody to love me. I was always looking for a safe place because I never really felt that way. And it's not to say that my mom didn't give me a safe place. It's just, you know, you go through a lot of different things when you're a kid and you don't realize until you get older that you really shouldn't have been subjected to a lot of the things that you were subjected to, you know? You know, my mom was an amazing, strong woman, but she had her own battles and her own things that she was dealing with. You know, I would never take anything from her because she was amazing. You know, she was the one who did tell me I was beautiful. But, you know, since we on the subject of fathers, you know, we can keep that mother situation, you know, for a different conversation.
So what about you, Jessica? What about was your father a part of your life? And how have that affected you?
Well, being that my dad died 2 weeks before I was born, it affected me because I used to confide in somebody that wasn't blood. But even though he wasn't blood, he treated me well. He walked me to school. He bought me clothes. He even fought with my mama sometimes about what I wanted when she say no. So to me, that was special. But hearing from my dad's sisters and my cousins how my dad was and how I act so much like him in ways and how I handle things like he would have and certain things that we both have in common, it kind of bring a little joy to me knowing that a part of him still lived within me. But I never felt like it hindered me no kind of way. I used to get mad when I was younger. I used to always have tantrums being that my mama was an addict, you know, and certain things she may have done may have, you know, made me mad. And I was getting Social Security, so my mom would probably get the check and run off, and then I would scream, I want my dad. I wish my dad was here. So sometimes the only thing that bothered me is knowing that hearing about this person being so good and everybody loving him and how he was towards his nieces and nephews, I kind of feel like I missed out on that. And then like sometimes I think about the way he died, like from what I was told, you know, he was going to go visit my mom and the guy stabbed him in Grady Home. He was right by the hospital. And I was like, well, how come he died? He was right by the hospital. I was always upset about that. And a lot of times I found myself blaming my mom for the incident, not really knowing, you know, both sides, because, you know, it's her side, it's his side, and it's true. But I kind of just accepted it for what it was. You know, he gone, you know, now they both gone, you know, so I don't think it would have made me any different, but I think I probably would have been a little better because knowing how me and my mom relationship was, I knew I probably would have chose my dad. Because even with him being gone, I always screamed, I wish he was here. So yeah, it kind of messed with me a little bit just knowing that I didn't have a choice. And sometimes it was hard to me talking to my stepdaddy about things because, you know, getting to know somebody. My stepdaddy was with us from the time I was 4 all the way up to the time I was 21, he died, you know. So my kids, they looked at him like a granddad. He was from Montego Bay, so he did weird things like eat water bugs and stand on his head when he was drinking. But to me, that was funny. It was entertaining. He was real funny.
Your dad is from Montego Bay?
No, my stepdad was. My real dad, he's from Erie, Pennsylvania. So I was told, you know, that he was a pastor up there, came down here, he was pimping, you know, kind of backslid. So once I heard how the story went, I was like, well, maybe that's why God took him from me the way he did, because he went against the grain, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's basically it.
Before I ask you the next question, did you say your dad was a preacher turned pimp?
He did.
Yeah.
Girl.
He was a pimp named Slickback. I was just playing. But now for real, like he, you know, my auntie Gloria, you know, they in the word. He used to do his thing in Erie, but he came down here, he was a ladies' man. So I was like, so I didn't understand it because like me personally, I believe in God, I truly do, but I feel like if somebody tried to force me to go to church, do this, even though my dad's side of the family, they very into church, I just don't like to be forced to do something, because sometimes I used to go to church on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays. Now that I'm grown, it's like, don't ask me to go to church. I can open my Bible and read it, but I just don't understand how he could go from being something great to being something. I ain't gonna say being a pimp is bad, and I ain't gonna say it's good either, because without him being that, I wouldn't be here. So I don't know how to judge that.
That's funny.
Girl, that ain't your cross to bear, girl.
And it ain't my problem either.
Right.
God is good, though. God is good.
Yeah.
So how did that affect you by not having him in your life? I heard you say you have 4 different baby daddies. Like,
yeah, well, one of them was really obsolete because, you know, he kind of took advantage of a situation. But the other 3, they were all older. You know what I'm saying? I never really dealt with, or, you know, even if it was just an entanglement, dealt with somebody my age. It was always somebody older. Even though I dealt with older men, I was always the one teaching, because I felt like I was beyond my years, but I always felt more comfortable being around a dude that was older than me. And I think that's because I didn't have my dad. So I probably was looking for something that I wanted in my dad, and somebody like caring about me, loving me unconditionally, and giving me what I wanted, you know, and not having to give too much back in return, you know, just like he was a pimp. You know, the Bible wouldn't have been nothing, these people wouldn't have nothing to talk about it for one Jezebels, and it was a lot going on. So I'm like, okay, well, I read a book called Whoreson. I don't know if y'all heard this book. I was arrested. I read this book. It was about this guy. He was a pimp. This lady was a hooker, and they had a son. Like, if y'all go back and read that book, that character that they created is kind of tell my story a little bit. But I just don't know what to say about it. To be honest, you know, I don't know.
So I have a question. I read they have a syndrome called fatherless daughter syndrome. And it says that it is literally an emotional disorder that stems from issues with trust and lack of self-esteem that leads to a cycle of repeated dysfunctional decisions and relationships with men. How do you ladies feel about that? Like, they literally have a syndrome for it, for people who grew up without fathers. And of course, it's AKA daddy issues is what they call it. Did you grow up with a dad?
yes, and no. I have a very confusing relationship when it comes to men in regards to that, because not only am I a daddy's girl, I also have daddy issues. So the reason for that is because, so my dad is a gangster, okay? Certified, triple certified. Okay. So growing up with that, and I also like the street dudes just because my daddy is a gangster. So I like the drug dealers, the killer, you know, I like those. Other dudes, the good dudes, were corny to me. Like, I couldn't get with them. I couldn't like, you're a cornball. Like, nah. So my relationship with men has been a struggle in regards to that. I always knew that I was a love child. There was never a doubt about that. But like, so he was in jail when I was born, and over in the Meadows, he was in state jail. And he, I guess back in the day, the fences were low enough to hop the fence, child. This man, I was born in Bellevue Square. I'm from Bellevue Square. So this man hopped the fence and came and ran to the project so he can see his daughter. So this is the stories that, you know, I'm told. And then my grandmother, because we were all living in my grandmother, we about 12 deep in the projects, okay? So my grandmother went and dropped him back off after he was able to see me. So I was going back and forth to see my dad. My dad got out for the first time, I think, when I was like 7. So, but I was going back. I always knew my dad. I was going to the visits every couple of weeks, every month, you know, like, so I always knew my dad. But the only thing is, they told me that I was going to visit him in school, that he was in college. So also had a lot of issues and trust issues with people, because once I finally found out that it was jail that going to, and that my dad was a criminal, you know, you know, the fact that all of y'all conspired against me to trick me, you know, into believing, you know, that he was in school better in his life when he robbed people, you know, and they tell the story. So, you know, like, I come from a dysfunctional family. Okay, like I come from the family with the gangsters, with the gamblers, with the boosters, with the drug dealers and the drug users. And I remember going to my great grandmother's house, and she had the card tables, and it's like it was always fast life. So I was 12 years old, and I went to juvenile, and I remember I was in juvenile for probably like a month or something like that. And I was so angry, and I was so mad at my dad for like leaving me out here on the streets all these years, and just like no guidance and no direction and stuff like that. So I wrote him a letter, and it was crazy because they let inmates, they don't even do prison letters. You can't send a prisoner a letter, but the fact that they let me send it because I was his child, and it was coming from juvenile, so it was coming from juvenile jail to the
oh wow.
Yeah, so, like this was my norm, and I was so angry with him and telling him, how dare he, leave me out here in the world like this. Like, he get out at some point, maybe in another year or so after that. But now I'm a 14-year-old and pregnant stuff. So he wasn't ready to be no grandfather, and he wasn't having being no grandfather. And it wasn't a matter of like, it was, no, you're not having no baby. So I started getting angry at my dad because of that. So then when looking back at my life, this is where like, the serial runaway started happening, and all of these things, the chain of events throughout my life, because I was looking to try to be accepted. I was super promiscuous because I had the previous molestation for them years and all of that. So now it's like, like when you said like to wanting to be loved, wanting to feel loved. So my parents emancipated me when I was 16, and my dad was already back in. So I told you he was in when I was 12, he was out when I was 14, and he was already back in when I was 16. So that's where, I got daddy issues, and I'm a daddy's girl. And I'm proud to admit that he's been out now almost 10 years. So, however, my relationship with men is I'm still working that out, because I'm just now getting days where thinking that I need a gangster, and I don't even want a gangster because they don't even treat you right.
No, like it could be a guy approach me, and it's sad, and I'm not even trying to be funny to knock nobody. I hate to even say square, because it's kind of like corny to even say a nigga's a square now, because it's like, bitch, you probably should have been talking to him. Right. You probably should have been talking to him. Like, maybe we need to just stop labeling them as squares and say, what's the word I'm looking for? A civilian, I guess? Hell.
He's different.
Them the ones that I want. Them the ones that I'm into.
The upstate.
You know what it is? I'm not going to necessarily say I want to write off a street man, because I do believe there's some of them who are entering an era of their life where they want to be a family man, and they want to change, and they want a different. I feel like I think my thing is I just need a little bit of mixture. Like I need.
Listen, I have always prayed that I need a reformed thug. That's it. Bring me a reformed
thug. There we go. There we go.
Even with them, I found out that they still have too much of that in them. So for me, I like the type of men that I like for you to know what's going on in the street, because you can't be super square to deal with somebody who I am and where I come from and all of that. You can't be all the way square. Like, you got to know what goes on in the hood. You got to know how people grew up when they, the things that they were and all of that stuff. So where when I'm telling you about my family and I'm like, oh yeah, I still got a 80-something-year-old crackhead uncle, and they're like, wait, what? You people do, and it's like, hey, man, I just need you to let the conversation roll. I'm trying, I'm on to something. I don't need you to, oh my gosh, or what, or my little brother got killed when he was 16, and doing that. Oh my gosh. So I need for you to know what goes on in the ghetto and in the street, definitely in the trench. But I need for you to be removed from it, because those type of, they still got a lot of healing, and black men ain't into healing these days. Mm-hmm. So you're going to I think what it is healed, that's going to end up triggering some shit that I'm trying to heal from. So
right, absolutely, everything you said is absolutely true, because and you know what, it's not, I wouldn't say that a lot of black men are into healing. I just don't think a lot of Black men have able to have the space to feel free to be vulnerable to him.
Yeah, they don't have the resources like us women do. There's not a lot.
Yeah, be though as it may, they're unhealed and I can't do it. Mm-hmm. So, yes, right. I know why, but that's still not an excuse. I'm not willing to make that exception for you, sir. I need for you to go and get her. Yeah, right. Go.
I don't want to do the whole struggle ride or die love anymore. Like, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm so past that era. Like,
love should.
I don't want to do that.
People say things that's cliche, and they say like you have to fight for love. I'm not fighting no more for nobody to fucking love me.
Yeah,
I'm not fighting for the relationship, and I can't do the reform thugs because they live double lives. They can't pick a side, and they feel like and the Bible talk about that. Like, you can't be people pleasers of both sides. You know what I'm saying? You rock on this side or that side, and they never know the difference. So somebody always gets hurt. I'm just tired of it being me.
Yeah,
and that's a daddy issue.
No, being on the receiving end of that,
and that's a daddy issue for me, big time.
Love. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Mm-hmm. So, does it? So with the way how you chose the guys, how did that affect you from your dad?
Yeah.
What?
And how you selected the guys that you were with from, I know, like, I can assume, I won't say I know, but I can assume that because of the way that life was dealt for you, this is why you were running off. And I can assume that after after you had to go through what you went through with the baby situation, like, what made you choose the older guy? What made you choose that? Did that have anything to do with your father? Did that have anything to do with something you felt you was missing or you needed, or?
No, well, yeah, well, it's a combination because you got to think I was homeless,
right?
So the guys my age, they were living with their parents and they couldn't do nothing for me in my situation. Right. So I needed someone who was going to be able to take care of me and get me out of my situation and take me off the streets. So ultimately, I had my first apartment at 15. So that's from. So I'm going to tell you right now, I didn't go in it with the right intentions because I was like, I was what you call it, like an opportunist. I was looking to see what you can do for me. Because I'm in a rough place right now.
Actually, I could only imagine you was thinking survive.
Yeah, it's definitely. It's like I had young boys, my age that, we was really in love and doing all. Was like, I'm sorry, baby. Like, I can't. You can't move me in with your mom. Your mom's not gonna let me move in. I'm 15 years old. So it's like, I had to do what I had to do, but I didn't know that I was going to get myself into a abusive, physically and emotionally abusive relationship. I didn't know that. But what I do know is that I know that I needed the authority and the guidance in my life. And that's where, like, now as an adult, I know that toxic masculinity is real. So the fact that so strong and I've been through so much, it intimidates guys that are still struggling with certain things and unhealed. I have to, think of myself and be careful and making sure that the person that I allow close to me will not only, be a safe place, but also protect me and sometimes even protect me from me, so. Right. It's very hard to find. So for me, I was willing to just be by myself. I'm not willing to add any extra burden in my life. So by me going through that toxic relationship and that abusive relationship, I also remember seeing my mom go through an abusive relationship. So it's like, I now know that I learned a behavior from watching my mom and thinking that it was okay, and I accepted it and think I wasn't willing to allow my kids to be subjected to that and think that that was okay. So, it was like it was a very hard thing to do, but to get away from that type of situation when my daughter was only 2 years old and my son was 4. So I had 2 small babies and I was only 22 when I left that situation. So it was like, it was really rough for me, but looking back, yes, that's exactly what it was. It was survival mode. And what I knew how to do before anything else is survive. I'm always going to choose me before anything else. So, you know, as we're talking about this, I'm looking back and analyzing. It's like, wow, that's why I made a lot of those decisions, because it's like, it was do or die for me. You know, I didn't have any options or, you know, anything. Even when I was out in the street, it wasn't like I was just a homeless, you know, kid and, oh, okay, you could come stay with me for a couple of weeks and you could go. No, I ran away from child services before they can process me. So it was like, you know, people didn't want me to child services to find me in their house. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, people get different type of charges when you're harboring a minor, and not only a minor, a fugitive, you know. So
Wow.
Out there in the world by myself, and didn't have anyone to turn to. And I mean, people wanted to help me. I'm not gonna say that they didn't, but everybody just kept saying, girl, turn yourself in. Like, you know, they was even sometimes setting traps for me because they was thinking that I was unsafe, and I was unsafe out there. But it was the survival mode for me. And that's why, you know, I make a lot of the decisions that I make today, and I'm able to get through a lot of the things that I get through in my adult life now, because it was like, if I was going to give up or give in to a situation, it would have definitely been back then. And I did.
Okay, so you know, let me ask you this next question. So fast forwarding from then to now, knowing all that you know now and all that you see, because you've endured so much. When you look at your sisters and you look at your cousins, or you look at other ladies, are you able to identify those daddy issues through them? Or are you able to place in your head, like, could it have been different for you if your dad wasn't also incarcerated? Do you think that if he was out, would it have been different? Or no, because he was living the street life anyway?
So, yeah, so it would have been a whole different circus, you know?
And see, and to me, I feel like because we've experienced that side, the positive light of healthy relationships was never shed. You know what I'm saying? Right. So, and for me, that's what I deal with on a big, like I wish that, you know, my dad and my brothers, or even my uncles, then, you know, they would have sat us down and actually just set me and told me how to be, you know, when it came to a man, or you know, you know, we always got on what not to be when it came to a woman. You know what I'm saying? Based on their experiences with women. You know what I'm saying? I was always told what a woman shouldn't do, but I was never told what a woman should do for a man. I just was always told what a woman shouldn't be doing for no man. What a woman shouldn't be letting no man do to them. What a woman shouldn't allow a man to do. Yeah. Never, well, this is what you need to do when it comes to a man. Like me, I'm learning now, like, bitch, you gotta shut the fuck up sometimes. I don't shut the fuck up. You feel me? Like, I ain't even gonna hold you. Like, I will go toe to toe with you. You know what I'm saying? But I've also learned that stemmed from a place of never feeling like I was being heard. You know what I'm saying? So I'm learning now. Like, that's not something I need to exercise in my relationship. That's something that I need to exercise in my growth with myself. Learning that I don't have to step up to everything. Sometimes I can hear it and don't have to hear it. Sometimes I could have a disagreement with my significant other or whoever, and sometimes just be quiet and let them have their moment. And even if it do make me feel uncomfortable, sometimes the best time is just to wait and then come back and say something, because sometimes they just need to be a man and vent and feel like they can say what they need to say, not anything, but be able to say what they say in the space where they don't feel like they're fighting you to say what they need to say. You know what I'm saying? For me, that's a lesson that I had to get taught recently. Shit, I ain't gonna I bet still don't be shutting the fuck up a little bit, but a little bit. Un poquito.
No, I understand that, because I know that's one of the things with me.
Un poquito. Listen,
un poquito.
Yeah, so Donna, do you think that's why you're like single again. I don't care. Don't need a man. I'm focused on me. You think that is contributed to because you didn't see it and you just like everybody's straight without somebody, or how do you really feel?
Well, no, right now, the stage that I'm in right now is actually healing myself because I do desire a relationship. But I realized from my last relationship that I wasn't ready because I'm not healed. So I had to start, number one, with forgiving my dad. And that was a hard thing for me to do because I literally had to forgive him in the spirit realm. It's not like I could pick up the phone, call him or anything like that. I had to literally bring the forgiveness through the spirit realm. Like, yo, I have to forgive this man in his death, which is to me a lot harder because I still don't have all the answers. But I realized
never got an apology.
Right. And I never got an apology.
But for me, like I said, I was always looking for protection. I was always looking for love. I was looking for somebody to make me feel like I was wanted because I feel like that's the part that he missed out on. I don't think he understood that. He didn't give me that. And because he didn't give me that, I was always looking for it. I didn't even know I was looking for it until I got older. And I entered an abusive relationship at a very young age. Like, I didn't even know that I was in an abusive relationship. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And I wasn't telling nobody. One, I wasn't telling anybody because my brothers was crazy. Like, my brothers would have, did something like bad. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like, again, like I said, I was always looking for something. I don't know what it was that I was looking for, but I was always looking for that need to feel safe, that need to feel wanted. And anytime a man entered into my life, whether it was false pretense or real, I immediately was drawn to that father, that love, that protection, that wanted to be taken care of type thing. Like, I've always felt the need, but I've never had it. I felt like I've always had to take care of myself. And because of that, I've never allowed a man to really be into my life and take care of me because I was used to the fact that sometimes a man is present and sometimes a man is not. So I couldn't get comfortable with knowing that you could take care of me because any minute it would be gone. You know what I'm saying? Like, I had to make sure that I never got comfortable with you being there because you would be gone. You would be gone. And the minute that I rested in you, it would be gone. So I always kept my guard up in regards to who I had in my life. And I feel like because of that is the reasons why I chose the dads that are in my kids' life. Like, my first pregnancy and experience was not a good experience. It was horrible. I was pregnant by a man that I wasn't even in a relationship with. I wasn't even in love with him. And that affected me in ways that you can't even imagine because that's not what I wanted my first experience to be. And the crazy thing about it is that in that moment, my stepfather was there through all of that. My stepfather was there through all of that, the entire pregnancy, the whole entire pregnancy with my mom, with me, you know what I'm saying? And, my son, don't get me wrong, I don't take anything from his dad because he's always been present in his life when he was able to be. But, the situation with my daughter, she don't have that, so I can relate to the part where there's a present, and I can also relate to the fact where there's an absentee. And I pretty much had the best of both worlds. I had a dad that was in and out, but I had a stepfather that was present all the time. He was always there. I'd seen him get up every single day, go to work and take care of my mother. My mom was definitely a handful, but he loved my mom and he went to work every single day and he took care of my mother. So that is what I saw as a kid. I saw a part where it wasn't the best, but I also saw where there was able for a man to be around and take care of you and be there. But I still had like my own distorted views on what a man should be and how a man was supposed to be present in your life. Because on one hand, I had my stepfather and I had my dad being there, but I also had aunts and uncles who had been with their husbands most of my life. So that's all I've ever known as seeing strong women have strong men behind them. I've always seen, marriage. So that's something that I always thought that that's the way it's supposed to be. You get married, dads are supposed to be present. They're supposed to be there. That's all I've ever known, So it did affect me a lot because I always thought like, Dad, what's wrong with me? Like why my dad, we don't have that relationship like that. Like why? And the crazy thing about it is I still, even though I wasn't getting 100% of what I needed from him, my dad still was my everything. You know, he still is to this day. Like I'm like Lala, I still say daddy. You know.
For me, I am a 40-year-old daddy's girl. My dad makes me sick to my stomach sometimes, but I'm a daddy's girl. So as I evolved from a child to a lady, to a young lady, to a woman, my perspectives are all different. So that's why as a child and as a young lady and as a young woman, you couldn't tell me nothing wrong about him. But as I started experiencing life as a single mother and raising my children and not having their father there, a lot of things were brought to my attention. And so I had expectations in a man. He's going to protect, he's going to provide, he's going to be this, this, and this, because these are the things that I was used to. So when I got to, you know, just guys speaking vulgar to you or trying to dangle smoke or drinks or, you know, gold or their fancy car or whatever, I'm a daddy's girl. Like, my dad never looked at a price tag for anything. It was just, he carried 3 wallets. And one of them was specifically, I felt like one of them was just for me, you know? So whatever I wanted at that time, I was given from that. So for me, it was important, and it affected me because it set my expectations for what type of man I wanted to have in my life. As a child, that created that fairy tale in my head that he got to do this, and this. Mm-hmm. That was my daddy. You know?
I tend to meet men who think they could buy me. You know what I'm saying? And that is like, my dad, he may not have been present in certain areas, but when it came to like buying me shit, I got every fucking thing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And then I had 5 older brothers, you know what I'm saying? And my brother that is closest to me in age bought me every fucking thing. You know what I'm saying? So it's like that type you can't really get me with, you know what I'm saying? So like, I never really could relate to women who be like, oh, you know, they stay because he did this and he did that. I'd be like, bitch, get your own money. You know what I'm saying? Like, what? Like, I'm not the type that you can hold money.
I can't relate to any of this.
So in that aspect, I do it. Like, a lot of times, you know, I do, like, you know, you gotta treat me a certain type of way. Like, yeah, you gotta do certain shit. You feel me? Like, I'm accustomed to certain shit. So it's like, and that way, like, yeah, you gonna have to do that. You know,
why relate, Donna?
I can't relate to any of it because, like, I didn't have my dad. I didn't have a stepfather. I didn't have even, like, my aunts and them wasn't even married to really good guys or married. Like, we had a crew of, like, it's my mother, her sister, and I have older cousins that's like in their 60s and 70s, like around the same age as my mom. And out of all of them, the only person that I remember having a man was my one cousin. She was married, but that relationship wasn't even something that was loving. Like, all I can remember from him is frying fish or going fishing. You know what I mean? So it's like, all I seen was strong women. I didn't see strong men. And then I have 2 uncles that was there on my dad's side. But even with them, like, my one uncle, I seen a couple of marriages from him. My other uncle, he was married to a woman, but I didn't even really see how they were loving with each other. So I didn't see love between a man and a woman growing up at all. And then my brother, you know what I mean? My brother is my brother. Like, he had his girlfriends, but I can't base on because he was having girlfriends. So I can't base on, oh, this is how a man is supposed to treat, because my brother treated me like a brother. He was my big brother, still my big brother, the one that I can call and say, hey, little sis needs such and such, and he's going to give it to me. But that's still not a representation of how a man is supposed to treat you. Right. All I see is I'm the spoiled little sister that's going to get what I want from my big brother. But as far as a relationship, man, he ain't show me how to really do a relationship because he was out there doing him. He was a teenager. You know what I mean? I'm looking at a teenager. He can't show me what's there to do when it comes to a man. So when I started dating, I was on my own with it. Like, I literally was on my own trying to figure out what a relationship is supposed to look like. Still don't have a clear answer, but, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
I can't relate to any of that. I can't relate to the stepdad. I can't relate to seeing a healthy relationship. None of that. So it's all foreign to me. So when I am in relationships and stuff go wrong, I have to literally rely on going to God and figuring out what's inside of me that's causing some of the stuff that's going on and why I'm making certain choices. And then kudos to y'all. At least y'all still have y'all dad. My dad got killed when I was in the 7th grade. So I didn't even get a chance to literally sit down and talk to him and maybe dig in his brain and be like, well, why did you do what you did? You know, or even get that whole, oh, I forgive you or forgive me for what I did. I got no kind of closure on it. So even with that, it's hard when I'm in a relationship because if something goes wrong, I don't even look for closure because I never got closure or anything with my dad. So it's more like chuck up the deuces and you're done. You know what I mean? So
I think that's how it affects us though, because of what we see and what we're around.
The more and more that I learned about my dad. So what I really did is I have one living uncle. And my uncle, I started telling him, I said, you know, I don't know who I am based off of, you know, I don't know much about my dad other than the bad side. Your dad tried to kill your mom. Your dad wasn't that great of a person. Your dad killed his best friend. Like all I heard was negative stuff about my father. So what I really did is I started asking my uncle to share fun stories about my dad, to share good memories about my dad so that I can see this man in a different light than what was shed for me. And then with me learning different things about him, then it helped me to have a connection to him through the more positive way instead of the bad way. Because as soon as I started doing something when I was younger, people were like, oh, she's acting just like her dad. Well, who the hell is he? How did he act? All I know is he was a killer. You know what I mean? So what, am I a killer too? So it was stuff that I was fighting against. And I didn't even need to be fighting against. So I started that way with asking him, just showing me some positive stuff. So he would send me stuff and bring stuff to me, like letters that he wrote and everything. So that helped me to forgive him because I did see the more positive side of who he is. Right. And the sad part about it is how he was when he was a little boy. He had trauma. So it's like, then I started looking at that and was like, well, he was just acting out from the trauma that he was dealt with because my grandmother had him through rape.
Oh, Jesus.
So when I started looking at that whole cycle, then I started looking at it in a different light. And so now for me, it's just healing me. It's not like fuck a nigga. No, it's more like, it's all about me. I got to heal myself because if I want this man to be a certain type of way with me, I can't be coming with my toxic ways based off of my trauma because I'm a fatherless
Right.
You know what I mean? I can't do that. So I have to heal myself emotionally before I can get in another relationship. Right. So my single summer is literally my wellness summer because it's all about getting myself together. Yeah. And I'm sharing that with my daughter. So when I'm on that pole not for a nigga to really look at me and I'm outside. Yeah, my body is what it is, but it's for me. Right. I don't give a fuck about what these niggas is talking about. It's for me. I just want to have fun. I just want to be me, and I am going to be free so that when he does come, I'm gonna be able to recognize that he's the one for me. Yeah. And it's not gonna matter about if I had a relationship ahead of me to look at. I'm gonna know it because mentally and physically and emotionally, I'm ready.
Right.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
I love it. Love it.
So how did that your like relationship with men, having your dad that close in your life?
It was a conflict in my marriage, but I caught it. It was a conflict in my marriage because it would be like, well, what you think, Dad? I done got married. I don't need to ask him shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I really need to be working that out with my husband.
Wait, you're saying you would go and tell your dad your personal issues with your husband and then see how he would handle it?
No. I don't do the personal issues with at all. But it would be like, you know, I'm making life decisions. We want to buy this house. I wanted a car. I wanted, you know, he told me he would get me a new washer and dryer. He didn't wash clothes. I did. So he's like, well, just pick out whatever. Instead of me going shopping with my husband to go get a washer and dryer, I'm like, Daddy, come on, I got to go get a washer and dryer. Come look at it with me. Come do this with me. I kept pulling him into my life at a point where I really needed to, you know, release from him and be more of a wife than I was a daughter at that point. You know, you the nest.
He gave you away. He gave you away. husband?
No, he gave me away. I didn't tell anybody that I was getting married. So I didn't talk to them for like 7 days. And they was like, what the hell happened to you? I was like, oh, we got married. And they was like, oh, you got married. So then they were all upset and they were like, oh, who does that? You got married and you didn't invite, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. And I was like, nope. So then I was salty about that conversation. So I didn't call them for another week. They said, hell, I thought maybe you went and got divorced since, you didn't talk to us for about a week and you got married. So another week passed. I thought maybe you got divorced.
Wow.
Oh.
Because it was going to be too many opinions, too many people talking about what and why and when and how we were going to do what we were doing. So we just did a private ceremony on the beach because I already knew what was coming with it. I knew it was coming. So my grandfather, my grandmother is 90 years old and she's living, and my grandfather is 86 years old. And my grandmother's going through she's been through a whole lot of things, but Alzheimer's is kicking her ass. And he's never been with another woman in his life. They've been married for over 60 plus years. Her mother and father, they were together for the same thing, from life to death. So for me, I had this fairy tale. Expectation that the first man that I marry, we're gonna be together forever, and he's gonna treat me like this, and he's gonna treat me like that, and all of that. And I was like, yeah, when my dad was treating me like, a baby, and I'm his baby, and I'm everything, and I'm everywhere he is, and stuff like that. Like, I was really, being honest, like I was probably just his little best friend. But for me, he was like my knight in shining armor. Like, he was everything to me. And to this point, he still is. Just now in relationships, it's like, listen, I'm not no fool. I know what my daddy did. I know how he did it. I know when he did it. I know who he did it with. I saw everything. So don't think your ass is slick, okay?
I wouldn't see him and I would feel like shit. And I would feel like, well, dad, where's that man that, was there, was around. So I kind of like resented him as I got older, because I started feeling like, he wasn't there. He wasn't around like he was supposed to be. And then I saw, all my other, cousins, they had in-house fathers, you know what I'm saying? Like, they were married, they had their dads, you know what I'm saying? So I kind of envy that, because it was like, dad, why my dad didn't want to stay in the house with my mom, you know what I'm saying? Like, what was wrong with me? Why, what happened? You know what I'm saying? Like, totally oblivious at this time. I wasn't even aware of how amazing my stepdad was yet. You know what I'm saying? Because, you be in different stages of your life, so you don't really even know what you have until it's gone. Mm-hmm. But like I said, my dad, he hustled, he sold drugs. So that's the type of lifestyle that he lived. You know what I'm saying? And, I resented him a lot when I got older, because I felt like, dad, he's not there, he's not around. And I kind of like stopped calling him a lot of times. It would be months sometimes that I would go without speaking to my dad, because I felt like I was teaching him a lesson, because it was like, how dare you not call me? How dare you not be around me? So I got to a place where I stopped calling him and reaching out to him, and it just made me real resentful. And as the years went on, the relationship just seemed to get a lot more distant, because of the fact that I was still holding on to what I felt when I was younger, not really understanding that, not really understanding what was going on in my dad's life. But he ended up changing his life and, getting saved, and, he started being a whole nother man. And so for me, I had to look at that differently. Like, okay, he's trying to be a different person, so I need to be able to at least meet him where he at, in this relationship. So because of that, my dad actually came to me. I was 39 years old when my dad actually apologized to me about not being able to be a dad to a little girl. My dad was born and raised in Chicago, you know what I'm saying? So when he came here, he already had that fuck around and find out.
Fuck you talking about?
Yeah, like my dad was, he wasn't that walking around smiling type nigga. Like, he had that like fuck around and find out type shit attitude, cold. You know what I'm saying? So he had to be that way. But when he explained it to me, my father had to be out in the world at a very young age and learn how to get it where he fit in at. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And when he apologized to me, you know, I couldn't do nothing but understand that. Like he said to me, I didn't know how to be a father to a little girl. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to be. He said, I had to ask the Lord, you know, to show me how to be that. I had to ask the Lord to give me, a different type of mindset, a different type of heart to be able to be the dad that I needed to be, you know. So for that, I was able to forgive him for when he wasn't around. But
yeah. Black girl magic, ooh, you the baddest. Sun kiss, heaven sent words don't do justice. I could go on and on and on, talking about that black girl magic, black girl magic. Ooh, you the baddest. Sun kiss, heaven sent words don't do justice.